I always knew this was a difficult case, and part of what made it so hard is there were so many little disconnected pieces that had to be put together to understand the full picture.
Cops have been stymied on several fronts in the investigation that could have helped them pinpoint where Paige was at certain times. Most notably, that day planner with its pages ripped out. So now they decide to follow another paper trail, her phone records.
We had determined that she had had numerous phone calls made to her on the day of her disappearance, and those phone calls we had traced back to several different people.
Specifically, they examined all the calls Paige made or received on the drive home after that long picnic with her former husband, Ron Biegler.
When she finishes her meeting with Mr. Biegler, early evening of the 28th, she starts heading back to Grand Junction. That's about a 2-hour drive from Grand Junction to Eagle. And so you can see she starts making some phone calls.
She had no plans to have any sort of appointments after this until she got in her car, so it really narrowed the possible suspects to people who spoke to her between the time she got in her car in Eagle and the time she got back to Grand Junction.
We had obtained her cell phone records, and from that we had determined that she had received numerous calls that day and determined that her last call had happened around 9 p.m. We determined who those people were. We determined that many of them were clients for her adult service.
It makes logical sense. If you are headed home and you're going to see some clients, you're going to schedule possible sessions with each of them.
Obviously, some of those people were a little bit more seedy in character. They had criminal histories and backgrounds that some of them were violent, some of them were not.
Tim Zotto was one such client. He's on probation. He wears an ankle monitor, claims he hasn't been out in 2 weeks, but he says the reason he calls Model Inc. is because he was checking to see how much it would cost to send an escort over. He says he never did meet anyone from Models Inc.
John Livingston calls Paige from a Motel 6. He tells investigators that he spends most nights sleeping in hotels or in his truck. And on the night Paige disappeared, he arranged for an escort to come to his room.
At Motel 6, he was one of the last people to call her and kept on calling her to come and visit her.
I was just checking to see if you had somebody coming out or not.
John Livingston, of course, who was at the Motel 6 wondering why Paige had never shown up, but he had had contact with her, and he at least could have known where she might be.
Stephen Heald claims he had sex with Paige numerous times, the last time a week before she disappeared.
Mr. Heald did not actually visit her on the 28th, but had a prior relationship with her for several years, a sexual relationship.
Cops find out the married man was stealing company funds at his job to pay for the sex.
Mr. Corluzzo, George Corluzzo here, had visited with Paige Birgfeld, had made several phone calls to her on the night of her disappearance.
George is a heavy drinker and drug user with a criminal history for theft, burglary, and kidnapping.
The information we had about George Corluzzo was that he was extremely intoxicated the day that she disappeared, that he had been using cocaine.
We were trying to look at all different angles, and so first, was she kidnapped? We couldn't eliminate that right away. Second of all, was she murdered? We couldn't eliminate that right away.
Mark Holcomb, repeat customer of Paige. Cops say Holcomb had a dispute with Paige over money.
He couldn't afford the amount that she was asking.
Joseph Carruth knew Paige because their kids played on the same soccer team. Imagine Carruth's surprise when Paige showed up at the door after he called for a massage.
Did they have an opportunity or means to do this? Were they in the area? Were they with her? Tried to either alibi them out, to try to determine that they couldn't have been in the locations to be around her.
3 of the men on the list drove a white truck. Now that detail was of some interest to investigators after they spoke to Carol Linderholm.
Paige was on her own, and she had leased an office space. She was looking for somebody who was supposed to show up, and the person never did, so she eventually closed her office, went downstairs to her car. As she was getting ready to leave, she sees this truck pull up right behind her to block it in. She was in her minivan, And as it was relayed to me by Paige, she just threw the car in reverse and just gunned it real hard. She was just going to back in to that car just to make space for her to get out. She didn't care what happened to the consequences of hitting the car or anything. She just wanted out of there. And the white pickup took off.
Was she shaken by this?
Oh, she was extremely scared. She told me about it, and she says, I've never been so scared in my life.
One by one, the suspects are cleared.
Those people gave us the information. We were able to quickly and easily eliminate them.
Except for one.
We pulled him in for an interview, and during the course of that interview, investigator Norcross immediately identified him as a likely suspect.
Does it make you nervous that we may think you did something?
No.
It should. Okay? It should.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.